Hey everyone and welcome. Today we are pulling back the curtain on this whole AI language revolution. We're going to look at the one single piece of technology, kind of the secret engine, that powers pretty much every major language AI you've ever heard of. Let's get into it.
You've probably wondered this yourself, right? It feels like 1 minute, chatbots were super clunky and awkward, and the next, they're writing poetry, they're spitting out code, and having conversations that are shockingly human. So what on earth happened? What was the big breakthrough that made all of this possible?
And I'm not kidding. That's really it. That's the secret. The groundbreaking paper that kicked this all off was literally titled "Attention is All You Need." And you know what? It turns out they weren't exaggerating one bit. This one single idea, it changed everything.
So yeah, that core idea of attention gave birth to this new architecture called the transformer. So for this first part, let's really dig into what that means and why it was such a total game changer.
Okay, so what is this attention thing, really? Well, imagine you're reading this sentence. The robot picked up the red ball because it was the closest. Now, to understand what the word "it" refers to, your brain just instantly knows to pay more attention to robot and ball than to words like the or up. The attention mechanism gives AI that exact same superpower. It lets the model look at a whole sentence and figure out which words are the most important for understanding the context of every single other word.
The way it works is actually pretty brilliant. First, the model scans the entire chunk of text all at once, no more reading word by word. Then, for every single word, it creates a bunch of scores that weigh how relevant all the other words in the sentence are to understanding that one specific word. And finally, it uses those scores to focus its brain power, so to speak, on the connections that truly matter. This is how AI finally cracked the code of real context.
And this brilliant idea came with some massive technical upgrades. Because the model sees all the words at the same time, you can train it in parallel. This makes it so much faster and more efficient to train than the older models that had to read word by agonizing word in a sequence. And that ability to scale up, that is precisely why we've seen this insane explosion in AI capabilities so quickly.
Okay, so once the world had this amazing transformer architecture, things started to branch off down two major paths. The first one we're going to talk about is a model you might have heard of called BERT. And honestly, the best way to think of BERT is as a brilliant language detective. Its entire purpose is just to understand.
So how do you train a detective? Simple. You give it puzzles to solve. BERT gets trained by taking a sentence, hiding a random word, they call it masking, and then its job is to guess what that missing word is. And because it can look at the words both before and after that blank space, it develops this incredibly deep, two-way understanding of how language actually fits together.
So, what do you do with a language detective? Well, you use it for jobs that need deep comprehension. Think about sentiment analysis, figuring out if a customer review is positive or negative. Or something called named entity recognition, where the AI can read a huge document and expertly pick out and tag all the people, places, and organizations mentioned. It's a total master of analysis.
All right, so that's the detective. Now let's talk about the other path, the one you're probably most familiar with, GPT. If BERT is the language detective, then you can think of GPT as the language creator. Its goal isn't just to understand language, but to actually generate it. And the way you train GPT is almost deceptively simple. You just feed it a massive, and I mean massive, amount of text, and give it one simple goal. Read a bunch of words, and then predict the most likely next word. That's it. But when you make it do that billions and billions of times, it starts to learn everything. Grammar, facts, writing styles, you name it. It becomes an expert at continuing any story you start.
And its applications are exactly what you'd think a language creator would do. GPT models are the engines running inside all those advanced chatbots we're using every day. And they're also incredible tools for things like creative writing, summarizing long articles, and just generating all kinds of new text from scratch.
So let's boil this all down, because this is the crucial takeaway. You have two incredibly powerful models, BERT and GPT. Both are born from the same transformer architecture, but they're trained for totally different jobs. BERT, the detective, uses that fill-in-the-blank method to understand language. GPT, the creator, just predicts the next word to generate language. Understanding versus generating. That's the key difference right there.
But here's the cool part. These incredibly powerful models aren't set in stone. You can actually specialize them for your own unique needs through a process called fine-tuning. Let's take a quick look at that.
Yeah, think of a model like BERT or GPT as having a PhD in general language. It knows a little bit about everything.
Fine-tuning is kind of like taking that genius and sending them to medical school. You take all their vast general knowledge, and then you train them just a little bit more on a very specific set of data to make them an expert in one particular field.
So the process, in a nutshell, looks something like this. First, you get together a custom dataset for whatever your special task is. Then, something called a tokenizer gets all that text ready for the model to read. And finally, you run a new training loop that just slightly adjusts the model to make it an expert at your specific job.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, imagine you take that BERT model, our language detective, and you fine-tune it on thousands of your company's own customer reviews. After that process, it won't just be good at general sentiment, it will be an absolute expert at understanding the specific jargon and nuance of your customers. So let's just zoom back out for a second. It really is kind of incredible when you think about it. From one single, elegant, powerful idea, just teaching a machine how to pay attention, this entire universe of AI possibilities was born. The power to understand, the power to create, and even the power to specialize that intelligence for countless different tasks. And that kind of brings us to our final thought for today. The attention mechanism was the massive breakthrough that took us from clunky old AI to where we are right now. It was a huge leap in how we build artificial minds. So, the question to leave you with is, what's next? What will be that next fundamental idea that unlocks a completely new level of artificial intelligence?